Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well and that you are all having a great day. To start things off, on Wednesday, popular financial news outlet known as Bloomberg reported on the development of Genesis and BitGo, two companies which seek to rectify crypto's billion-dollar theft problem. As featured in the piece, one of the primary concerns of institutional and large capital investors is the lack of protection afforded by purchasing and trading cryptocurrency through traditional exchange routes. While most investors are aware of the risks associated with hacked accounts, the steps involved in securing coins in a wallet or cold storage are still too complex and not intuitive for the casual investor. For big investors with millions, even billions, at stake, regular stories of coin theft are enough to create the illusion of a dangerous market to be involved with. Quick side note before I continue on, you may have, if you've been in cryptocurrency for a couple of months right now, you are probably used to the news that we've been having of like hacks and stuff that have been going on. While they may seem normal to us, keeping in context, these are people who are trying to get into the market who are typically only dealing with the financial, like the traditional financial institutions. If you heard on a daily basis that the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange had been hacked, or that there had been a multi-million, maybe even billion-dollar hack of JP Morgan Chase, Deutsche Bank, and all these other places, you'd be absolutely terrified. So this is, in crypto, we know it because it kind of comes with the territory. Everyone, in my opinion, is trying to attack each other's websites and what have you. But this is apparently, I mean, first of all, it actually is a major problem. Like, I'm not like, yeah, they say it's a problem. Like, it's actually a problem. Theft is a major problem. But if we want these people from the traditional world to actually come in, this is where the idea of like safety mega custody solutions kinds of ends up coming up. And this is why we had news a couple of months ago last year in the summer that there were like companies who were making bank vaults inside of the mountains somewhere in Switzerland. So it gets a bit intense. It says, however, the lack of simple but functional coin protection also presents a significant opportunity for companies that are willing to solve the problem. BitGo Inc., a platform which bills itself as the market leader in institutional cryptocurrency financial services, will begin offering a revolutionary feature for customers: the ability to buy, sell, and trade Bitcoin, Ethereum, and currencies without the coins leaving cold storage. The end result is greater security for investor funds, assurance for large investment customers, and decreased risk of liability on behalf of the exchange. An important point in crypto, if crypto trading portals are to ever become more insured platforms. Hacking, which cost cryptocurrency investors $1 billion through the first 9 months of last year, has become a high-profile issue for industry seeking legitimate recognition and the greater appeal to the mainstream investor market. While crypto prices have continued to fall since reaching a crescendo in January 2018, many optimistic investors have turned to the possibility of institutional investments such as Wall Street banks to inject large amounts of capital into the market and renew price interest. However, the lack of security and regulation has continually been pointed to as a concern for such investors. When you look at actual like news outlets and stuff like that, it's fairly interesting to note that these platforms still do cryptocurrency news. They'll still talk about it every single day, which I find quite interesting because, once again, as they were reporting before in 2018, it's a dying market. And if it's a dying market, kind of interesting that you still talk about it so often on CNN, CNBC, what have you. But now the rhetoric, I kind of want to use that word, is that crypto is better. We have air quotes, bottomed out in price, and therefore things can only go up from here. Once again, their opinion, not necessarily mine, but the idea is that we need more custody solutions before we have these mega ultra banks getting into the space. If you want my opinion, they're already in the space. They have been for quite some time. They probably have their own cryptocurrency solutions that they have made themselves, that they probably have stored in their own coffers or something like that. But the idea is that we want the other hedge fund managers and hedge fund this and mutual fund blah, blah, blah to be able to get into the space as well. And they're the ones who need the extra storage to be able to think about being able to trade cryptocurrencies back and forth while they're in cold storage. And it's kind of interesting because if the coins are locked away, then how exactly are you trading? But I'm pretty sure this is going to be the future, because if we do probably end up having a situation where Bitcoin goes up into the high 5 digits, maybe even scratches the surface of 6 digits. Like I mentioned before, No one out there in the world, nowhere. Even if you are a true believer and being able to hold your own crypto, there'll be something in the back of your head that says, I need to store this somewhere very safe, because nobody wants to have a cold wallet or a piece of paper that has their QR code on it stuck under their bed. That is not a safe hiding spot. But yeah, kind of interesting. And let's move on. Next up, by ccn.com, a new report released by major crypto exchange Shapeshift revealed that it had received 18 subpoena requests from U.S. authorities in 2018. Despite being based in Switzerland, the U.S. government filed 30% of all requests Shapeshift received last year. Here's the actual, I think we showed this for another video as well when we were talking about the actual cryptocurrency companies who've been, it was by Kraken. Kraken also, and I gave them a little golf clap for this one as well, because I said I thought it was very nice of them to be transparent with all of us. They were telling us exactly how much U.S. authorities had been breathing down their throat asking information. Exactly. Earlier this month, Kraken, another leading crypto exchange, released its transparency report. The firm revealed that more than 66% of the requests were filed by the U.S. government. The company emphasized that only 20% of its user base is composed of investors based in the U.S., and the rest are based in Europe. They said the U.S. is about 1/5 of its clients, but 2/3 of the requests. U.S. agencies are much more active and are much less surgical. For many requests, we have no matches. It wouldn't be surprising to find that the same subpoenas go out to everyone in the hopes that a match will be found. The overwhelming Know Your Customer, or KYC, request filed by the U.S. government is not exclusive to crypto. Other sectors, including fintech, have been pressured by the U.S. authorities to deal with a wide range of regulatory issues at a larger magnitude. Without reading any further, you don't probably really want to know what other people are talking about as far as like the heads of it. Anyway, one of the most interesting things that I've seen develop, and I've had conversations with people about this as well, and they've told me that I'm wrong, or that I'm simply overstepping, or that I'm not seeing the larger picture. In my opinion, I think the U.S. is, I don't want to say digging their own digital grave. That sounds a bit too harsh, but I feel like they don't understand that they're slowly pushing themselves out of the running. Shapeshift is in Europe. Binance is in Europe and Asia. Many other Kraken is also in Europe as well. Like all these places that are like very good platforms. They will not touch the United States. If their platform is allowed to people in the United States, they typically receive a subpoena by the U.S. government saying, hey, like they got, poking and prodding around trying to figure out exactly what's going on. Shapeshift had an issue last year, and this is why they are in Switzerland. I don't know how many people were here for this. Shapeshift is like one of the largest crypto companies that we have out there. They pretty much allow you to, I want to say like swap in real time cryptocurrencies back and forth. I believe the Exodus wallet uses them as far as like you can, I want to swap from Bitcoin into XRP directly within the wallet. If I'm not mistaken, they use Shapeshift. And Shapeshift said that the person who runs Shapeshift wants this whole, beautiful decentralized world. And he said he couldn't take it anymore because every single day he was getting letters in his mailbox, like the actual physical mailbox from the U.S. government telling him that he was doing something wrong. He's not in his jurisdiction. He's doing so and so and so. It's kind of completely insane from a governmental standpoint, I understand their concern, but in my opinion, I think they've overstepped so far that they've pushed everyone out. There have even been conversations before with Changpeng Zhao, the guy who is the head of Binance, who said before, we don't deal in the US anymore and it's not really our area. So you can still use these platforms, but they're no longer catering to the US customer at all. A lot of them we had last year as well, and even like a week and a half ago, who were talking about that they were shutting down operations, and it was always like, we're shutting down in Iran, Iraq, North Korea, so-and-so, and the U.S. It's just a very weird cluster that the U.S. has kind of fit itself into. And like I said, the other side of the argument is that from other people who I've spoken to at great length about this, they've pretty much said that I am incorrect and that the U.S. is trying to gear themselves up to make sure that they know exactly how the space is evolving. And therefore, at one point, they're going to open up their doors again to these other companies. How do I say this in like the nicest way possible? Around the rest of the world, I grew up in the States and I moved out of the States and I'm no longer in the States right now. You learn very quickly that the rest of the world doesn't actually care about America. And I know that sounds kind of weird to even have this conversation in this video, but it's true. So all these other companies who are leaving the States and are not doing business with them anymore, you have a much easier time doing business in Asia and in Europe and sometimes even in Africa than you do in the United States. So I think the U.S. they're pushing these companies away because I think they're trying to make more room for the NASDAQ and Fidelity and the New York Stock Exchange when they decide to release their own things, because it's just too much right now. It's too much news every single day about the United States pushing companies away and all this other stuff. They're pushing great money away. That's not to say that the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ aren't going to be completely massive, because they are going to be. But it's just a really weird spot in the cryptocurrency space when you have so many other countries who make regulations a lot quicker, and they kind of welcome these other places with open arms. And then you have all these it's like, this is 40 from the DEA, 19 from the SEC, 13 from the IRS. It's a little intense, but let's move on. Next up, Binance is in the news. Binance, one of the biggest crypto exchange platforms worldwide, has announced intentions to increase their reach and spread to at least 8 different new countries before the end of 2019. Although a Binance spokesperson only confirmed 2 of the proposed locations, it is confirmed that the company wishes to retain its position as a top crypto exchange platform. Recently, Binance introduced a new platform which focuses more intently on the European market for the fiat crypto trading. A day after, a statement that includes a screenshot with information that shows all the locations for its fiat crypto exchanges was posted online by a third party. The report shows all the fiat crypto exchanges that have already kicked off, the ones that are intended, and also the exchanges that haven't kicked off yet and are still under consideration. The countries allegedly proposed for expansion include Singapore, Malta, South Korea, Liechtenstein, Argentina, Russia, Turkey, and Bermuda. Uganda was already launched in October. This means the prospective fiat to crypto platform would spread across a few continents. 2 of the countries in the list could be confirmed. They include Singapore and Malta. Bermuda is supposedly under consideration, and 5 others are reportedly intended. In late August 2018, Binance announced that it intended to launch a fiat to crypto exchange in, that one threw me for a loop. For some reason, my brain couldn't process that word, and it felt like I was tripping down as I was walking down the street. Binance announced it intended to launch a fiat to crypto exchange in Liechtenstein. This will have support and provision for both Swiss francs and euros. You may have noticed one country's missing from this list. Kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. We heard this proposal last year for rather the one in Uganda, and I'm almost certain at this point Binance is going to start spreading out aggressively. We had news when they had their fiat to euro trading pair for pretty much all of the EU, for the euro and the British pound, that they were overwhelmed. People have been asking me in the comment section below why Binance Jersey hasn't accepted them yet, or why it's taking so long. Apparently, they didn't expect this flood of people to kind of go to their platform. I can only assume it's potentially maybe over 1 million people. I think Europe in general has over 1 billion people, so it's safe to assume that there are at least 1 million people who have been looking for a relatively well-known path to get into the cryptocurrency space with fiat. Anyway, the point is, if you notice the list of countries, I'm certain at this point, I don't have confirmation, obviously, we're probably going to have multiple in Europe. We're going to have a couple in Africa, some in South America. I assume when they launch in Argentina that they'll try and do on a country-to-country basis. I assume maybe Brazil, because Brazil is also a major market and a huge country. They're also going to try and get into it. A couple in Asia, as you may have noticed, especially South Korea and Singapore. These are very big spots. No news on Japan, which would also be a complete game changer. And yeah, that pretty much covers the entirety of the world except for North America, which I don't think was not done on purpose. I'm pretty sure this is exactly what we were just talking about. Binance has had a very difficult time. Binance is like one of the greatest companies that we have in the cryptocurrency space. They're completely transparent. They allow so many people to do so many things on their platform. They have so many coins. I feel like if they had been accepted more by the US, crypto would be in a very different spot, kind of just my opinion. But we still have the entire, notice that this isn't happening in any other country around the world, or if it is, it gets resolved very quickly when it comes to being a security. And so many other countries have already announced they're like, okay, all cryptocurrencies are securities, but you can still do what you want with them when you want on this platform and so and so and so, or they're like announcing cryptocurrency exchanges that are allowed to do whatever they want. Anyway, the point is, at the end of the day, Binance is going to be a major platform in Europe, in the UK, in Africa, in South America, and in Asia. And I assume there was definitely probably a meeting of the minds in Binance where someone even made jokes about launching in the North Pole or Antarctica. Kind of a shame that the US is being left out of all of this. But I've believed for quite some time, even 2 years ago I was talking about this, I really want rapid expansion into South America and to Africa. These are countries that have been, almost said a curse, that have been shunned heavily by banks and financial institutions for decades now. They don't like them because there are people there who do not have a lot of money. And we know that banks typically don't care for people who don't have money. Nicest way of saying it. If we can get a proper stronghold on the South American market and also in Africa and give these people a way to be able to get into cryptocurrencies easily, especially with their local fiat currencies, especially as both sides of the world are experiencing mega inflation and also hyperinflation in their respective countries, we could have a monster of a cryptocurrency market simply because this is why I was talking about IOTA before. I said I thought what they were doing was kind of interesting. They're attracting companies and they're partnering with companies who other cryptocurrency spaces aren't partnering with right now. You kind of have to go for what no one really has their eye on. And if they open up one in Russia, first of all, that'll also be very good because we've heard proposals from the Russian government before. It's pretty clear that they want to allow cryptocurrencies in their country. They haven't been as stringent as the US, but it seems like they're kind of also skipping down the street, taking their time. If we can get confirmation that they're going to open one up in Russia and South Korea, the sky is the limit. But yeah, good job, Binance, once again, proving that anything that Coinbase can do, Binance does 35,000 times better. And yeah, let's move on. Next up, in a move that is aimed to put a positive spin on the Bitcoin ETF situation, European Union regulators have stated that they could reduce the regulatory pressure on cryptocurrencies if a Bitcoin ETF sees approval. The European Financial Advisory Group had earlier said that cryptocurrencies could be a threat to investors and the presence of market integrity. The report stated, and I do quote, "These issues are not unique to crypto. They may be exacerbated in the case of crypto assets because of their high price volatility and often low liquidity," end quote. The report further asks local governments to not legalize cryptocurrencies because of their volatility and the fact that they are not financial instruments. At the same time, the body has also recommended a uniform way to regulate cryptocurrencies. There are several organizations that have taken a keen interest in the Bitcoin ETFs, with the main organization being the Winklevoss brothers-led Gemini Exchange. Recently, the Winklevoss had said that the Securities and Exchange Commission of the USA was calling for more market surveillance and protection in the marketplace. Cameron said, "We understand the Commission's concerns. We hear them loud and clear, and they are basically calling for more market surveillance and protections in the marketplace to prevent against manipulative behavior and stuff like that." So Gemini has built a market surveillance team. The brothers also talked about the inception of the Virtual Commodity Association, a self-regulatory organization for the cryptocurrency industry in the US. Yeah, what it comes down to, and I shudder to even think of this, is that most of the world is still waiting, and it's very weird. I mean, I've never owned a country. I've never owned a continent. I've never been in charge of a continent or a country, even a city, a street. It seems kind of weird that the rest of the world is constantly waiting on the US to do anything. I get that the US is this major financial hub, giant behemoth, but it's still a little weird that you as a regulatory body in the European Union would wait for approval from somewhere else for it to happen. It feels like if you launched 5 of your own, People in Europe would probably launch 5 of their own. People in South Africa would maybe go, okay, let's launch a couple of as well, because we saw the interest when, what was it, Sweden? When they launched their ETN and they opened it up to US dollars last year, and people from the US market started dumping their money into this, and then the SEC, I only assume, gave them a subpoena or a cease and desist, whatever kind of framework or letters that they actually had to throw at them to get them to stop. Kind of weird. Once again, the same exact thing comes down to, if you paid attention to the wording, it comes down to like custody platforms, and market surveillance is going to be a very big thing. They figured out that they can track Bitcoin transactions quite easily, and I have hopes for the future of Mimblewimble with Bitcoin, and I will leave it at that without going any further. But yeah, interesting situation, and let us move on. Next up, here's an interesting one. Crypto entrepreneur and regular contributor to CNBC, his name is Brian Kelly, claimed that there is no chance for a Bitcoin exchange-traded fund or an ETF approval in 2019. Kelly made remarks in an interview with Cointelegraph at the Crypto Financial Conference in Switzerland just a couple of days ago, discussing the overall state of the cryptocurrency market. Kelly predicted that 2019 would turn out better than 2018. The analyst argued that we are somewhere close to the end of the bear market, but we might have another dip lower. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Speaking specifically about what we should expect from 2019, Kelly said, probably in 2019, the focus will be on currencies, Bitcoin, Litecoin, some of these, because we have quite a bit of geopolitical tension in the world. Yeah, that's an understatement. We are starting to see some global macro players use Bitcoin as alternative to their gold position or as a way to hedge against fiat currency fluctuations and volatility. End quote. When I state stuff in my videos that stuff like this is happening, I'm told that I'm an idiot. I have no idea what I'm talking about, and it's fairly certain to me, and I will reiterate this once again until we get 1,000% clarification, but it's fairly obvious that this is happening right now. The world is slowly going to crap. That's the nicest way of kind of saying it. And we know for a fact that there are countries around the world like their governments, who are buying up Bitcoin. To think that they are not is foolish, I would say, from an economic standpoint, to think that that's not happening anywhere around the world. And then when you get someone like Brian Kelly going on to CNBC stating things like this, like no one ever in finance, no one ever explicitly says anything directly. No one really names anything. It's the same exact way when the Fed goes on the news and they state that they believe that certain things could happen in 2019, or, we believe that the market is blah, 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 blah. This usually means that they're either going to raise rates or lower rates. It's always a certain way of saying things. I think for a lot of people who are maybe new to finance, maybe new to cryptocurrencies, maybe even new to regulations and or politics, it's fairly obvious what's happening behind the scenes, that there are countries who are, we know some of them, that they're trying to do this. And I've thought for quite an amount of time as well, because we've also had speculation from other countries. If you remember, the U.S. had put out reports before that said that they believed that Russia, Iran, I believe it was Iraq and Venezuela and North Korea were thinking of creating their own cryptocurrency, or that they could have potentially been getting their own crypto from other places to be able to hedge against something. And this is when we had news as well that North Korea last year had stolen like 50,000 Bitcoin or something like that. So one can only assume that this is still going on. But yeah, you better believe that this is actually still happening. According to Kelly, 2019 will see Bitcoin become a more accepted asset among mainstream investors. However, when asked about the likelihood of a Bitcoin ETF receiving government approval this year, Kelly said that there is no shot for that. The approval of a Bitcoin ETF, an investment fund that would track the value of its underlying asset and trade on stock exchanges by the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC, is a highly anticipated event that is seen by many as a prerequisite for major institutional investors entering the crypto market. Over 2018, the SEC had received multiple Bitcoin ETF applications from various players, such as the Winklevi, but is yet to approve any of them. Expanding on his point of view further, Kelly said that the agency is unlikely to change its opinion in the near future, as there is too much that is unresolved. According to the analyst, it will take more than a year to settle the existing issues. Told you guys before, I have no hope. First of all, and forgive me for my my thoughts. I have no hope for the U.S. anymore when it comes to cryptocurrencies. I expect that the market will move, but it won't be because of a Bitcoin ETF. It'll probably be because of the other major institutions who are launching crypto trading desks and products and their own futures and stuff like that. Any hope for an ETF? I don't know why cryptocurrency became so obsessed with the idea of an ETF. I partly blame the Winklevoss twins. My personal opinion, they made it seem like such a major thing. I think it had to do with smugness, in my opinion. I felt like because of who they are, that they thought that 4 years ago, first of all, if you don't know, they've been trying to launch a Bitcoin ETF or a Bitcoin related ETF for the past, is now 5 years, since 2014, and every single one of them has been shot down. I feel like because they think that they have enough money and that they are rich enough and they know what they're talking about, they think that they know what they're talking about, that they thought that they could go to these, to the SEC and to the CFTC and kind of propose these things and they would kind of get pushed through. And it might have to do a bit with smugness and pride, as far as it's pretty public that we know that the Bitcoin ETFs have not been pushed through at all, any of them. And I feel like if you are, I don't know, I feel like at a certain point they feel like they deserve to be given one, and this is why they keep putting one through. Anyway, just kind of my own opinion. The Bitcoin ETF is a lot larger than it actually should be, especially when we have exchange traded notes, ETNs. ETPs, exchange traded products, like all these other things exist out there, but for some reason it's like walking down a road and you see 50 different pathways and you focus on the one that has the most rocks and you have no shoes on. You're desperately trying to get to the end of it just to prove that you can do something, when all other 49 other roads and routes, whatever you kind of want to call them, would have been appropriate as well, and your feet wouldn't have wound up as bloody. Kind of a weird analogy, but it's what came to my head at the moment. There's so many other things happening in the cryptocurrency space. The fact that we have major institutions getting into cryptocurrency, launching their own cryptocurrency trading desks, launching their own physical Bitcoin futures, and also governments buying, collecting, and potentially probably they are mining cryptocurrencies, and the market is going sideways because we're waiting for an ETF, is the most nonsensical thing in cryptocurrencies since we had, never mind, I'm going to continue on. Right, no ETF, don't hold your breath. What's the word? Like not the confirmation hearing, my goodness. The approval date for the next one is supposed to be sometime in February. Don't hold your breath at all. It's going to come. It's going to pass. Let it go. Don't even pay attention to it. Let's move on. Next up. It has been reported that during a briefing held in Congress as part of a broader event taking place called the Congressional Blockchain Caucus, while this smaller scale Congress primarily focused on discussions regarding the application of blockchain technology for beginners, the conversation steadily turned more political, resulting in some discussions about matters of policy that would be thrown up with new technology. I was like, okay. The latter subject is a particularly pressing one, considering how feeble the blockchain space is, especially when it comes to fiscal regulation, international policy, as well as taxation, and even blockchain scalability in the face of the future of mass adoption. We're lucky enough to know that the blockchain technology allowed for one of innovation that is steadily crowd-barring the middle. Okay, micropayments, that was a really weird sentence. So apparently this happened. Somebody went in front of Congress and showed them exactly how the Bitcoin Lightning Network worked. Keeping in mind of the timing is all too weird for me. These kinds of transactions can take place seamlessly with minimal fuss and with a far greater scope of efficiency. One of the examples given was a multicolored candy machine on the congressional case that was lightning-enabled candy dispenser. I assume this is the one right here. Kind of weird. For this, the speaker used a nominal amount of Bitcoin sent across the network to the candy machine through the speaker's smartphone. The end result was an initial degree of incredulity, replaced swiftly by an impressed silence as the machine reacted and dispensed candy in real time whenever a Bitcoin payment was made. For each of these payments of candy, a payment of 1 Satoshi was made, Satoshi being the smallest denomination available for Bitcoin. And then they go on to talk about the 10,000 Bitcoin per candy. Anyway, when things like this happen, they don't get widespread, I hate the term mainstream media, but like normal traditional outlets, it doesn't really kind of go on there. And I think it's always kind of weird. It seems very significant to me that there was a congressional meeting and someone showed members of Congress how to use the Bitcoin Lightning Network and showed them how fast it was and how low the fees were. Taking a step back from the candy table, why there's a lot of candy on that table? Why do you think members of Congress wanted someone to stand before them and show them how the Lightning Network works? It's all very weird to me. I think a lot of people think that these things just happen because maybe the members of Congress liked candy, or maybe there's something happening behind the scenes that we keep getting little drops of news about that no one's really paying attention to, that governments are trying to really figure this out. And they're looking into maybe even potentially integrating it into their own systems. There's no other reason why. Please give me, and I mean like an actual reason why members of Congress would want to see someone demonstrating the Lightning Network for them if Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies were not a threat. I mean, the candy machine was a little weird. Kind of is what it is. Do what you have to do to increase adoption. But this is kind of happening all over the place, especially, like I said, with the timing. It's a little weird because we've been hearing like I said last week and the week before that, and this goes back to November. We've been hearing about the Lightning Network at least 2 or 3 times a week. It's fairly obvious something is happening with the Lightning Network. I still firmly believe there is no way on this earth that we are going to have Bakkt launching their thing where companies and institutions are able to accept Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies as a payment method without the Lightning Network. Lightning is the solution that we have right now. Bitcoin, the core, is still slow, and it's going to remain slow. And I think last 2017, we had a situation where we were 200,000 transactions blocked up in the Bitcoin blockchain. That cannot happen again. It'll be detrimental to the entirety of the cryptocurrency space if we end up reaching a Bitcoin price of 30 or 40,000 and we are 350,000 transactions pushed behind. I'm still expecting sometime in the next 2 or 3 months we're going to receive my opinion, my head. This floats around in my mind. Some type of confirmation from someone that they're using the Lightning Network, or we're going to see a push towards people being told to open their own Lightning channels. That's also something that I think is going to happen. I think it's going to take a lot of people by surprise. A lot of other people in the normal, not cryptocurrency world aren't really going to understand, but I think they'll also play a part. And I'm waiting. We had something last week as well where we were talking about, we know that that people sell that physical Bitcoin node, but I'm waiting until we get something where there's like an app or something, or like it's preloaded onto a phone where your phone acts as a Lightning node. We already have the other ones where they're talking about acting as like a Bitcoin and an Ethereum node. I think Lightning is going to come very, very quick. It's kind of weird, like I said, in front of Congress. Just gonna throw that out there. At least is very significant in my mind. I love when we have stories like this, and for some reason it does nothing to anyone else. It's very, very odd. It's the same exact thing when we had those meetings. There were 3 of them last year. I don't remember if it was before Congress. It was some type of U.S. Lawmakers, and they were asking all these questions, and they were very desperate to know if Bitcoin specifically could take over the US dollar. And I tried to tell people in the video, I think it went over everyone's head, or maybe just no one really cared. You have to understand, you don't mention something unless you kind of fear it, if that makes sense. I thought it was interesting that we had 7 times during that meeting that they were constantly asking, even after being confirmed many times, they kept asking if this in the future could be a risk to the US dollar. And it makes you wonder, why would government members worry about a cryptocurrency that's falling in price rapidly taking over the US dollar, unless other countries around the world they know are already into this, maybe are buying as much Bitcoin as they possibly can to hedge against the US dollar or get away from the US dollar in general. I don't know. Obviously all speculation. But the speculation is like looking through the window and seeing that there's a tree in front of you. It's very clear, at least to me. I have a feeling this will all be confirmed in some sort of way by the end of this year, or maybe even next year. I think it's difficult to hold secrets like this. We'll eventually see a run-up in prices, and I think it'll be because of some type of news that we're going to have. Anyway, just my speculation on the matter. As of right now, even like a couple of seconds ago, this little line over here is relatively new. Prices went down last night. and I'm not happy that prices went down. However, I actually planned on buying some last night, and then that's when this happened when I woke up this morning. So, I mean, it's nice to see that I didn't buy when prices are up, because every time I buy, prices are always like at a certain point, and I wake up in the morning and they've dropped down. I guess maybe I should just always wait an extra 24 hours before I think of buying. Anyway, everything for everyone who's not looking at the screen. Bitcoin's down 4%. XRP is around 4 as well if you round it. Ethereum's around 5, 6. Everything is around this 4 to 6% range, except for like Tether and the other stable coins, because they're stable coins. Everything is following the same exact trajectory, and then even more so, it looks like we're still trending sideways as we continue on. Let's hope that we actually end up having a great week. I see no reason for us not to. Beam is finally here. I did not expect that. 77 cents per beam for anyone who's not looking at the screen. That is exactly probably, it should actually be a little bit cheaper than that. Wait, it says hold on, that can't be. It says 262 million beam already circulating. I think that is probably one of the most incorrect things that I've ever seen in my entire life. I think the maximum amount of beam that they're supposed to be is 262 million. I don't know why they are using that as the circulating supply. It's a little weird, at least in my opinion. Beam should be about like 2 or 3 cents right now. Like, there's no reason for Beam or Gren to be anything over 10 cents. Just a lot of market hype, especially with these coins. Anyway, I think it's going to do it for this video. Hope you all enjoyed. Hope you all are having a great day, a great morning, a great afternoon, a great evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching and listening. I do appreciate all of your support. And yeah, I'll talk to you all soon. See you.